Hey everyone, welcome to Plants and Politics. So it's just proving once again that law enforcement has no interest in improving their violent and sometimes lethal behavior. The city of Detroit has filed a counter lawsuit against Black Lives Matter protesters. So if you're not aware, a few months back, Detroit activists sued the local government, stating that the police, quote, repeatedly responded with violence. And of course, this has to do with all of the protests that took place over the summer and after the George Floyd incident and murder. They were protesting police violence. Keep that in mind as I give you these details. So included in this complaint were photos and details of injuries that protesters received, and they attributed these injuries to police actions, including bruised and broken ribs, concussions, a collapsed lung, a fractured pelvis. I mean, these are some very serious injuries, and they say police caused them. Activists therefore asked the judge to bar police from using, quote, tools of excessive force. The court responded by issuing a temporary order which limited the officers' use of force. Well, now the city has filed their response, and it includes a denial of every single act of violence and every injury. They just flat out deny all of it, as well as a counter lawsuit alleging that the protesters were part of a, quote, civil conspiracy. They also claim that protesters intended to, quote, disturb the peace, engage in disorderly conduct, incite riots, and destroy public property. They also say that these protesters, quote, defamed the mayor and the police by making social media statements. So, I mean, you know, they like to call those of us on the left snowflakes, but my God, these are the snowiest of snowflakes. They said that these statements defamed these people, quote, murderous and brutal nature of the Detroit Police Department. So you respond with brutality? You don't want to be called murderous or brutal? Why would you respond then in a brutal nature? Kind of making their point there for them. Another online post that they cited referred to the actions and mentality of the Detroit police as, quote, the wild, wild west. That apparently was defamatory. Seriously? It's also a song. It's also just a saying. Oh my God. These people need to grow a pair of ovaries. So not only are they denying that cops did anything wrong, but to literally add insult to injury, they're asking the judge to slap the protesters with a financial penalty and award damages to the city. So activists are now lobbying city council members to cut funding to the city's legal efforts. And protesters say that in some instances, they were violently attacked by police within minutes of beginning their marches and protests. Nothing had happened yet. They literally had just taken to the street, they had just begun marching, and they were violently attacked. This, they say, only escalated tensions, it incited violence, and this totally tracks with the findings of an investigation conducted in New York. Just recently, there was a press conference held where they talked about the findings of this investigation. This was conducted by a watchdog group, and it was in regard to the way the New York police handled George Floyd protests this past summer. New York has an oversight agency called the Department of Investigation. They did an investigation. They had interviews with police and with protesters. They looked at footage of incidences of violence that took place and so forth. They issued a 111-page report which concluded that officers engaged in, quote, excessive enforcement, and that they used aggressive tactics which violated protesters' First Amendment rights. They go on, and the report cites a lack of preparedness and adequate training for the officers' failed response. And they said that their actions, quote, went beyond poor judgment or misconduct by some individual officers. They also concluded that, quote, the department itself made a number of key errors or omissions that likely escalated tensions and certainly contributed to both the perception and the reality that the department was suppressing rather than facilitating lawful First Amendment assembly and expression. They also blamed police commanders for resorting to methods that are typically only used when you're dealing with a riot or a terrorist attack or some other grave threat, not peaceful protesters. The report said that these tactics, such as encircling protesters and then making mass arrests or using batons and pepper spray, actually escalated tensions. Oh, wow, go figure. That's a shock. The report stated, quote, the NYPD use of force and crowd control tactics often failed to discriminate between lawful, peaceful protesters and unlawful actors and contributed to the perception that officers were exercising force, in some cases beyond what was necessary. Yeah, that's kind of what we saw in video after video of police driving by a peaceful group of people and just indiscriminately spraying them with pepper spray, including one where they sprayed a baby. Police hitting people with their vehicles, police beating people with their batons who were just standing there not doing a damn thing. Or, how about that Martin Gugino who was just knocked down by police with his head cracked open on the sidewalk? And one major issue that this report cited was the police department's failure to even acknowledge the reason for the protests. So they refused, even after the fact, even looking back, hindsight is 2020, while they're investigating this and conducting interviews, the police refused to accept that police brutality and racism were the impetus for these protests. So they responded with exactly what people were protesting, which of course enraged protesters even further. This is just common sense. I mean, if someone comes to you, your friend, your family member, your spouse, whomever, and they tell you, I'm pissed off. When you do XYZ, it pisses me off. And so immediately, instead of apologizing, instead of taking responsibility, you go and do the exact same thing repeatedly that they just finished telling you is what they're angry about. How do you expect people to react? I mean, seriously, what do you think the takeaway is going to be? So New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio has had to walk back his claims that cops acted with restraint, that there were only a few bad apples. Now he's saying he understands. And, I have mixed feelings about this. He was woefully incorrect. He was completely ill-informed. How he didn't know what was going on in his own city, I don't know, because I'm on the other side of the country and I saw the videos. But I will give him credit for the fact that he is at least taking responsibility, albeit too late. But in the age of Trump and Mr. I don't take responsibility at all, and I never, ask for forgiveness for anything, and I never take any of the blame. I mean, in that age and with that type of mentality going around, I at least have to give him credit for being brave enough to issue an apology. So he stated, quote, I look back with remorse. I wish I had done better. I want everyone to understand that, and I'm sorry I didn't do better. I mean, that's the least he can do. At least he's doing it. But yeah, everybody needs to step up. Everybody needs to do better. When you have videos circulating around the country showing the police brutalizing people who are doing nothing, just like the authorities in front of the White House that Trump ordered. When you're tear gassing people, hitting them with rubber bullets and pepper spray and pepper balls, and they're literally just standing there holding signs or marching, I'd say you got a problem. I'd say that you have ill-informed, undertrained, and or racist, lunatic, out of control, ill-equipped, irresponsible, shouldn't be on the streets, shouldn't be allowed to have a weapon type of officers. Again, they said, 97% or something of their 93, 97%, something like that, of the George Floyd protests were peaceful. It was primarily, not all, but a lot of the tension, a lot of the violence was brought on by police who didn't know what to do, who weren't given any direction, or who just wanted to, who are just racist assholes, and they were just looking for a reason. Anyway, guys, I will let you know if I hear any more. As always, like, share, subscribe. Thanks for watching and listening. I'll talk with you soon. Take care. Thanks for listening to Plants and Politics. The only way we can take our country and power back is to spread the truth and build an army. So remember to like, follow, subscribe, and share on Facebook, YouTube, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks again.